Welcome everyone to the Lazy Money Machine podcast. I think we're at episode 6 at the moment already, Graham.
We are.
We're
rocking.
We're rocking.
Rock and roll, and today is rock and roll, because I know you got a rock and roll surprise for us, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. Today is rock and roll, and we're really happy with this format that we're putting out. We're creating short episodes for the Lazy Money Machine podcast, which talk about a topic we find in the media, an article, or a sound clip, or something interesting in audio that we found on the internet. And today is one of those days. I went out and looked for an unusual suspect for today. So let's first listen to the audio.
Never play to the gallery. Never work for other people. Always remember that the reason that you initially started working was that there was something inside yourself that you felt that if you could manifest it in some way, you would understand more about yourself and how you coexist with the rest of society.
So this is, he's no longer amongst us, David Bowie.
Unmistakable.
Yeah, although he's a fantastic artist, but in various interviews, he's also sort of a philosopher on life. And
a smart business guy as well. Do you remember way back he was one of the first guys to float himself as an IPO?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that was, it was way back in, I think, the tail of the .com days. He listed David Bowie as a PLC, a public limited company, right?
Yeah, look at that. So this clip basically talks about never play to the gallery, and the first part is very generic. And now there's another 7 seconds of this clip which I'll play, which talks more about his artistry.
I think it's terribly dangerous for an artist to fulfill other people's expectations. I think they generally produce their worst work when they do that.
See, so that's interesting, and I wanted to link this with what we're doing, Graham. I've got a few other things that he said, which we can link up in a few minutes. But this is like never play to the gallery, and I thought that was such a beautiful way of saying it. He says never do your work for what others basically expect you to do, and he has various interviews where he's sort of in his career has at some point gotten mainstream, and he was so frustrated about it. And that's sort of the risk, I think, that we have in life if we follow other people's expectations, especially the people around us. What's your take on that?
Yeah, when Bowie passed away, was it last year now? Time flies, but I was quite upset because he was just one of those guys. Step away from the business and the philosophy of life thing. Just in terms of his art, he just, he did some great songs. I never was really into him, because I know people who were really into Bowie, right? They were mad about Bowie. But I had a lot of respect for him because of exactly what he said. Never play to the gallery. And I think the challenge with that, Eric, is that it takes time, doesn't it? At the beginning, can you imagine when you were Bowie going out at the beginning and you did all the Ziggy Stardust stuff and all that kind of thing, and you dressed up like a woman, makeup, and how people would have reacted to that? You just kind of would have faced so much criticism and doubt, and he wouldn't have had the following that he has now. He's built that over decades, right? He's built that over since the late 60s, right?
Yes.
So 40, 50 years, right? So you can imagine that's really tough. But ultimately, it's like investing, isn't it? It's kind of like investing in yourself long term, and not playing to the gallery. Because you can easily go out and get the results now, but you have to appease everybody. But if you go out and do what you think is right rather than what other people want of you, that takes time, and it takes a lot of self-confidence.
Yeah, and I think this is a good lesson for everybody who wants to get started in an entrepreneurial venture, or wants to get started in property for that matter. It's not for everybody, and not everybody is doing it. And I think being certain of your own capability to figure things out. That's always what Brendon Burchard is always saying, right? Trust in your ability to figure things out. And I think that's sort of what this comes to, right? Step into an area that you might not be comfortable with.
What did you think of Bowie as a just to back up a little bit, what did you think of Bowie as an artist?
Again, like you, I was not so much of a fan of his music, but I was certainly a big fan of his extravagance, like Elton John was in the early days, right? Not really caring at all what other people think about him, and just expressing who he is from his heart, which is, I think, amazing. And that's what the artists, I think, that we all remember are usually the guys that do this, right? That are not pop mainstream artists, but are like, you know, the Michael Jacksons of this world, you know, the Elton Johns, the crazy guys. You know, in the rock scene, there's, you know, there was Kiss in the old days, right? I mean, these guys were so extravagant and so weird, but they get remembered for their legacy, I think.
There's a link somewhere which, you know, if you're listening to this, please, you know, let us know and put this in the group, or if you're responding to the email or whatever. There's something on Wikipedia which lists like the top 10 best-selling artists of all time. This is really interesting, this, because it shows exactly what you said, Eric, is that, you know, those are the ones we remember. The top 10 artists of all time, I think, I'll just recall off the top of my head, are Elvis, the Beatles, Madonna, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, AC/DC maybe, a few other, maybe, did I mention Madonna? I can't remember.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
But if you look at that list, and Michael Jackson maybe as well, they've all, Rolling Stones as well, had some kind of controversy in their life. They've all lived their lives. I mean, Elton John's probably in there as well. They've either had sort of controversy about their sexuality, about drugs, about political views. And they just, or even like, you know, Elvis at the beginning, he was playing black music to white people, right?
That's right.
And it is so interesting, that whole thing about playing to the gallery, isn't it? It's that those who play to the gallery get forgotten. But those who are true to, you know, the rock star and inside yourself, rather than the politician who has to go out and get 50% of the vote, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the ones who sell hundreds of millions long term, right?
Yeah. There's a follow-up that I want to move on to from Bowie, where he also speaks about like how he did it. Let's listen.
If you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth. And when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting.
Wow.
Cool, isn't it?
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's very awesome. And
he doesn't give a shit as well.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. And that's like, you need to have that kind of attitude a little bit to achieve something remarkable in life, I think.
Yeah. And you can imagine that. Here's the interesting thing. Like, I think when, you know, rock stars, real rock stars, like, I mean, how many have passed away in the last couple of years? It's just crazy, isn't it? You know, people like Prince, Jackson, Bowie, and, you know, people cry when these people die, right?
Yes.
But, you know, the opposite of the rock star, I mean, this applies to us in business, right? As investors or life or whatever. The opposite is the politician, isn't it? The guy who goes out and tries to play to the gallery. But, you know, when politicians die, do people cry? I don't think so. They breathe a sigh of relief, right?
I can't imagine a politician where, you know, the lines of LA were lined up, you know, in the coffin passing by, you know, and that happens to big rock stars, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are exceptions, right? There are rock star politicians, but
right.
Yeah, very, very few.
So, but I mean, this when I listened to this yesterday to prepare for the show, was like, you know, that's my life too, right? I really want to step away from like the common thread or the common line that most people do, because I think, you know, stepping out of the comfort zone, is the cliche word is used, right? That's where all the excitement happens, right? I mean, recording interviews, you know, doing this work with you, writing a book, you know, doing videos. I think it's uncomfortable and it's outside of where I normally would be, but it's exciting and it creates something for me, at least, of, okay, this is where the action happens, I think.
Yeah. You got to do something that scares you, haven't you? I think that's your body telling you that it's uncomfortable. You get that sense of nerves or butterflies before you. It could easily be something like hitting publish on a post, couldn't it? And you think, oh no, I can't publish this. This is too personal. Mm-hmm. You ever get that? You know, when you think you're going to share something, you think, oh no, people aren't going to like this because it's too much of an insight into my life. Mm-hmm. But that's exactly what you have to do, isn't it? You've got to go out there naked almost.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I think good lessons learned from David Bowie and how we can all apply it to our lives
That was a great choice, Eric. Why did you pick that one? Because that was awesome. I mean, I think it just sums it up. Because it's so not business, it's business, if that makes sense.
And that's, I think, what I try to get at. I mean, I think you and I are here on a mission that is not necessarily in the basis, the need for money, but the need to do something remarkable, I think. And this just spoke to me yesterday. I was looking around and I saw Bowie. Okay, let's listen to this guy. And he is amazing. And I'm very certain we'll come back to him because there's lots of other material of him that is really interesting. And rock stars, in the end, we're all talking about life. And okay, we need money to live. Like we also explain in our book, you need money to live the lifestyle you want. But I think we can get inspiration from people that have lived remarkable lives and the way that they have approached it.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll. See you in the next episode, guys. Thanks for listening.